All right, here we are. Welcome to another Tuesday night podcast, and we are live tonight. We have a really special show for you tonight. I was thinking, Tom, I was thinking about us getting together with this podcast today, and I told you, I almost didn't wear my Sachs Realty shirt.
Well, you got to represent, man. That's your brand. You worked hard to build that thing. You got to be your own biggest fan. So wear that thing proudly because you know where it came from, too.
I know.
That's on your back today because of all the sweat and work you put in before. So you wear that proudly, man. I'm glad you wore it.
I know that's right.
Well, it was either that or your mesh half shirt, right? So
that's right. Now you're going back. Now you're going back. You're going way back, man. Look, and there's a lot of people listening. They're like, "What?
Yeah,
what is he saying? What's he talking about?"
Just Google mesh half shirt, and you'll probably see a picture of Todd with a mullet.
That's right. I had a mullet. Absolutely.
Did you? I never had a mullet. I never.
Yeah.
Had a mullet, so
I had a mullet.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Todd Sachs. I'm the broker and founder here at Sachs Realty. We are a local real estate brokerage in Maryland. We help buyers and sellers and tenants of both residential and commercial real estate. But if you're anywhere else in the country, we have an amazing broker network. If you're not represented by an agent, you need one, just hit me up. I'll be glad to point you in the right direction to a great agent in your town. Tonight I have Tom Reber. And guys, it's a special guest. I started a real estate brokerage not that long ago, 2017 actually, but I've been a licensed real estate agent since 2005, but really since 1989, I've been a contractor. Mm-hmm. And I actually started in the industry serving the, housing market way before I got my broker license with, doing construction projects on homes. As a home improvement contractor, a builder, developed. And really, it's an honor tonight to talk about, and Tom Reber. Tom's amazing. We're going to let him introduce himself here, but it's an honor to really kind of address the subject of dealing with contractors because it's what I've done. I mean, I tried to add it up actually when I was preparing for tonight. I tried to think about how many people I've actually employed, and it has to be at least 1,000. So I can remember, at many points, I had 30, 40 guys that were working at a time and, and a lot of projects. If I had to say, I probably have done 3,000 or 4,000 projects over the last 32 years. So anyway, we're going to talk tonight about how you should interview contractors. If you're a homeowner, if you're an investor, I don't care how experienced you are as an investor. If you don't have a construction crew yourself, you're going to be dealing with contractors. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So without further ado, Tom Reber. Tom, introduce yourself, man. I know we're going to post all of your show notes, man, but I know you're doing something with HGTV. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
It's crazy. Well, hey, first, thanks for having me here. You and your team have been rolling out the red carpet for this, and I really appreciate it. And I pick up on that because that's actually one of the values in my company, the Contractor Fight, is we always we call it roll the red, right? And so hats off to you guys, first of all, for doing something like this. I know it takes a lot to put something on like this consistently, to keep showing up, and you're adding value. I usually find there's usually one little thing that's said in any sort of training like this or conversation like this and it's usually a thing that wasn't a bullet point on your notes or something, right? That you say that ends up changing somebody's life, changing their future. So hats off to you guys. So,
thank you.
But yeah, my name's Tom Reber. I was born outside of Chicago, grew up in a town called Wheaton, Illinois. And long story short, I did everything I could to not go into the trades because all the people that I knew in the trades were dirty, tired, and never made a lot of money compared to all my buddies that I grew up with that had dads that were doctors and lawyers and engineers and things like that. And they lived in all the big houses. We lived in the 1,000 square foot little house and that we rented. And I have a lot of respect for my family and the people in my family that did what they did. They worked their tails off. Right. But and it formed me, right. It kind of gave me that grit that I have and that motor and the grind and all that. So I ended up going into the Marine Corps. I thought I was going to be a professional football player. But then it turned out I wasn't that good. And I was even a worse student. So I had a hard time getting into college. So I tried college for about a semester. I dropped out and ended up joining the Marine Corps and did 4 years there, and then got out and ended up working for my uncle, who was a painting contractor, ran his crews for a while, spent some time in, I'm flying through this because, anyone's life story is too long, right? But I ended up working in campus ministry at the University of Wisconsin in Madison for a number of years. I got fired. Can anyone top that? Can you ever get fired from a church? And so through the years, my ex-wife and I, we had adopted 3 kids, one from Atlanta, who's 21 now. He's in the Marine Corps. And then we brought home my daughter 5 years later from China. She's 16. And then 5 years after that, we brought home my other son, who's 21 now. And he had just turned 21 yesterday, and he's from Haiti. And so, through all that, I built and sold a decent sized painting company outside of Chicago, did 300-400 projects a year. And it woke up one day and I just realized that I felt I had more to offer the world. I wanted to have a bigger impact. And so sold my half of the company and started working with contractors, speaking at events, and picked up a coaching client here and there. Fast forward, to, 2015-ish, 2013, somewhere there, we started the Contractor Fight. It wasn't called the Fight then, but we rebranded it in 2017. And so our whole mission is to bring respect and dignity back to the trades. Because what I found in my journey is, contractors and their families really make a lot of sacrifices to build stuff and fix stuff and beautify things and make people's dreams come true. And what I saw was a real disconnect from the value they were adding to what they had to show for it at the end of a long career. And so my number one philosophy of how we deliver this is just through education. And so I started a podcast one day. I started a YouTube channel, and I just started educating contractors. And then we built our coaching company up and workshops and this and that. It's great. And literally are helping people around the world. But I'm most proud that we produce more free content to help a home improvement contractor than anyone on the planet. And so you mentioned HGTV. Apparently they have these people that, fart around on YouTube and look for potential hosts. And they came across some of my videos, reached out to me. I blew them off for about 4 months because I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a scam. And the guy, he was great. Tyler Chadwick, really, really good dude. I've never met him in person, but he just stayed on me. And he's like, just give me 10 minutes and I promise I'll leave you alone for the rest of your life. We had a conversation, realized it was legit. And then, so they hired me last November officially to be the host of a new show coming out in fall of 2021 in the next few months here. I don't have an exact date. The working title of the show, which means they could still change it, but they've been putting it out there, it's called Unfinished Business, where we help people finish some projects. And so I come in with a team and we kind of do our thing. And so it's been a wild ride, man. And I'm excited to, hang out with you here tonight and answer any questions and see who we can help.
Yeah. Well, I like the title Unfinished Business because, I told you I've been a contractor since 1989, but there's still unfinished business in this house. And it's funny because I'm sitting in my office in my house and the air conditioner on this zone is broken. It just happened today. And so my daughter, we were on the phone talking with her, FaceTiming a little bit earlier. And I said, "You're not going to believe it." I said, "The air conditioning's broke." And she said, "Then why wouldn't I believe that?" She said, "Of course I believe that." I love her. But, the famous thing for me to say was, when's this going to be fixed? Well, it'll be about 2 weeks. So that became the running joke. And then, so I was talking to another buddy of mine, contractor, and we were talking about how we put plastic up. And I said, but no, they work on one side of the house. I said, but nobody can beat me. I took the whole back of the house off and put plastic up, and then researched how bad it was to actually have bats flying around in your house. Like what percentage of them could be rabid and stuff like that, and whether their spit can, contaminate you. So anyway, look, thank you for your service in the Marine Corps. Really appreciate that.
Well, appreciate that.
Honored to be here with you tonight. So Tom, where do we begin, man? I mean, it's just such a topic because I think contractors get a bad rap sometimes. And I think, it's going to be a good show tonight because we're going to educate people on dealing with contractors and how to get great results.
Yeah.
Because what you want is great results when you're working on that project. And if you're rehabbing a house for profit, if you're an investor, you need a whole team. And, if you're doing a project at home, you may need a whole team, but you may not after tonight. Tom, let's kind of go over some of the reasons why. I mean, so, because we have a tendency, if we've been a homeowner, we're hiring people, sometimes we have a tendency to just always be selecting the wrong people to do the work at our house. Let's just talk about what are some of the risks other than the obvious ones, right? Like loss of money, but what are some of the risks that people can experience by dealing with the wrong contractors?
Yeah, well, I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, and I have a couple things that come to mind right away. But before I do that, I want to be very clear here. The contractor fight, the name comes from the battle we fight between our ears, the 6 inches of real estate that we have. That's the contractor fight. And most consumers, homeowners, you're going to think I'm full of crap right now when I tell you this, but 95% of the contractors you ever talk to, get a price from, or work with are undercharging for their services, mostly by half. Like they should be double of what they really should be charging to make money. I've worked with thousands of contractors through the last decade. When somebody comes to us, the average contractor, and I'm not talking big commercial guys and this and that, I'm talking specialty guys, painters, remodelers, flooring guys. They make, when all is said and done, maybe a 5% net profit. So that means if they charge you, $1,000 to paint a room, if everything goes right, they're pocketing $50, right? If they don't buy more material than they need, if they don't go one man hour over the estimated time that they thought it would take or whatever. And so there's this misconception that people think that contractors are just ripping them off. And most contractors are great at the trade, but they really need a lot of help with the math, the marketing, how to connect, set expectations, how to communicate well. And I also want people to know it's important here. I'm not here tonight to just puff up the contractors, because if you spend any amount of time on my YouTube channel or my podcast, I probably spend about 70% of the time getting in their grill, telling them to get their heads out of their tails. Because most of the problems that contractors have, and most of the issues that a homeowner will have with a contractor is friendly fire. It's self-imposed by the contractor. So I'm always in that. So I want to set that straight, that this, I call it on both sides, right? And I think there's some unreasonable contractors, just like there's some unreasonable homeowners and this and that. It just is what it is. We're all human beings. So, but I think a couple of stories that came to mind was many, many years ago, I didn't get a project. It was for a $2 million addition outside of Chicago to paint it. And there was a lot of stain work. And
to paint it?
Yeah, to paint it.
So $2 million painting job.
No, the paint job was like, I think it was 175, 200,000 bucks, something like that, whatever, just our portion. But it was a lot of custom stain work and this and that. And they went with the guy who was not well branded, a chuck in a truck, and he had some guys, and I think he picked up his labor force at Dunkin' Donuts getting coffee every morning and said, hey, you guys want to make cash for the day? Long story short, because they weren't trained, they weren't part of some of the organizations that teach you how to do some things properly. They left all their piled up stain rags overnight. They caught on fire, burned the addition down. Right. And that's a big problem. Not obviously the money's a big deal, but the family still lived in the other part of the house. And so that came to mind when you brought that up. there's been stories, and again, I don't want, this is not all contractors, we all know that, but like there's people that have been killed because they hired the wrong contractor. There's people that have, you hire the wrong company to come in your home or your business or whatever, and you're working in this area of the house and a guy wanders that side of the house because he's looking for trouble to get into or whatever. So you and I'm sure could trade stories for an hour of things like that. But I think the biggest factor is just the stress level that it puts on you as a consumer when you don't hire the right contractor. And I butcher sayings all the time, Todd, so correct me if you know the right one here. But there's an old saying that says when you hire the right contractor and they give you the price, you only cry once, right? You see the shock of the price and you cry once. When you hire the wrong guy, you cry several times. And so, I just think, we'll get into this a little bit. I think there's some things that you can do to set the game up in favor where you both win, where everybody wins, because that's what we all want. I think one of the other big problems that I always had as a contractor, and I've since solved, but was, how do I prove my value before you hire me? Right? Like, how do you know we're really different and worth the money before you hire us? And on the consumer side, how do I really know that they're going to be worth them? So it goes both ways. And so that's where we live in the best time ever right now for building your brand, creating content, educating people. I'm always encouraging contractors to do a lot of content and a lot of videos and all that. The more you can educate people, the more trust goes up. And now when you roll the dice, it's not that big of a risk for the average consumer.
Yeah. A lot too, it's funny. You talk about the price and being the contractors, not charging enough. Mm-hmm. I think that is what people have to realize is a lot of the techs. I mean, you have two different kinds of companies that you can hire to come out. One would be more like a salesman that comes out that works for a larger company where they, have multi-levels of management. But most people are calling the actual tech or the, the carpenter and the one that's actually doing the work. And what people don't realize is these guys aren't business people. I mean, they're good at building things. And so what happens is they start to go down a wrong path. They're not very good communicators. So maybe they underbid the job, maybe whatever it is, they're getting the wrong vibes or, and then they start working other jobs and different projects. And, frustration, the risk of hiring the wrong contractors is really in my opinion, there's a lot of frustration, like you just said, avoiding, the stress and the hardship, but really they can cost you more money too, because if the guy's paying other contractors, I mean, they can put mechanic liens on your house. You can end up paying double, and then you can get the wrong job.
Yeah,
you can actually end up with not what you wanted in the first place, and we'll kind of go over that. But let's talk about the difference between the general contractors and the techs. So kind of give some context to the different layers of an organization.
Yeah, well, a general contractor is just that. He's a generalist. And, it's like if you're an event planner, right? I'm working with an event planner right now, and she's got her connections of the sound guy and the video guys and the vendor for this and blah, blah, blah. They work in that world every day, all day, year round. They have great relationships with suppliers and all those things. And so it's really no different with a general contractor where they have established relationships with their subcontractors. A lot of them will have a couple people on their own payroll to manage jobs, project management, things like that. And so I think it certainly just depends on the type of project that you're doing, and how much is involved. I know there's some general contractors who do everything in-house except mechanicals, because that stuff's a little more dangerous, right? A lot more can go wrong with that. But I just think it's, I know we have a lot of people here that watch this and follow you that are into investment properties and flipping things and this and that. Sometimes it's really easy just to go through one person and not have to juggle all these other relationships like the painter and the floor guy and the drywall guy and this and that. One thing a general contractor is going to do that you're not, if you're going to try to general your own project, you don't have experience, is he's going to work with economy of scale. He's going to understand scheduling a lot better and how to phase a job so things could be done economically. And more importantly, finish on time so that property isn't sitting there, costing you more money because you can't get it on the market. And so I think it's just one of those questions you have to ask yourself: what degree of involvement do I want to have in this thing? And then there's things you could do to go about picking the right guy.
Yeah, and to that point, the general contractor is probably going to keep his subcontractors busy, so he's going to have more control over them. And when you're doing that one-off, you don't really mean a whole lot to them. So it's kind of hard to get them to show up. I mean, it's funny. Like a lot of the projects that I've done, I work with a lot of guys that work for big builders, and I could get a house built way quicker sometimes than the big builders because they knew if I called them up, I was going to pay them on Friday, right? Where the big builder was going to drag them out for maybe 2 or 3 months to get their money. But, when you're dealing with a general contractor, they have that pull where they could say, hey, get off of that job and come and do this job because I'll pay you or whatever and get it going. They have more connections than you're going to have. And, the other thing too, that when I always found, and when I would go out to a job and give somebody a price on a project, I like to give it right there on the spot. You talk about pricing because a lot of times the contractors will come out, they'll measure, they'll listen to everything that you're going to say, and then they leave, and then they never get back to you with a price. So, I always said, hey, look, I'm going to give you the price while I'm here. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to, and I'm going to leave you with the price. And then when I would give them the price, they would say like, wow, that seems like a lot of money, but I'd get the job anyway because nobody else would come back. But let's talk about the cost of the project. So, because there isn't a big cost if you hire a general contractor. Do you think it is, Tom? I mean, versus hiring you contracting the job yourself.
Yeah. Well, first there's your own time and emotional well-being cost, right? Of juggling everything. That's certainly worth something. I know for me, when my attention is on a bunch of things that I'm not really good at, I'm less efficient and effective in the thing that I should be doing every day in my job or whatever. So, and my family and stuff like that. So no, I mean, it really, what is it? You're going to build something. There's labor and there's material and some permits and some stuff like that. I think one of the things that consumers and contractors who don't know their numbers often or just don't understand fully is how much it costs a contractor just to be in business before he even sends a tech or a sub to your house, right? Like I was doing the math with one of the guys in one of our groups the other day. He's got a 3-man company. I know he's not a general contractor, but he's a 3-man company. And I'm not even talking what he pays his guys per hour, not even talking field wages. I'm simply talking overhead, which is the marketing and the insurance and the owner's salary and the office person's salary and the phones and the internet and all that other stuff. I define overhead as anything you got to pay, even if you don't do any jobs that month, right? Like you still got to pay this stuff. His overhead is $2,000 a day for his 3-man team before he even pays his guys. And trust me, he's not like that's just a break even. That's to not even make a net profit at the end of the day. And so, but there are, one of the things that you touched on earlier, because a general is going to have relationships with subcontractors, they're going to have some efficiencies built in place. They're going to have some pricing already worked out. I was a sub for many awesome builders through the years, and this is back in the fax machine days. I would come down to my little home office every morning. There'd be a fax in there of a new project because he did all these basements. He just did these really high-end custom basements with certain trim packages and built-ins and stained bars and this and that. And so we worked out a base price for certain square footage of wall. We worked out a base price, for the trim packages and this. And he did his own math. And because I didn't have to go out there and market and sell and get those projects on my own, I was able to give that to him at a discount, still hit my margins, but I had residual lead and work coming in, and that's worth something. And that's something that if you try to general on your own, you're not going to have that. So that if you try to general on your own, those subcontractor companies are going to be charging you retail because chances are you're kind of a pain in the butt to their schedule, and you're not going to get first priority. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them 100 jobs a year.
I agree. So where do they find people? So nowadays, I mean,
Yeah.
back in the day, we used to do the yellow pages, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything was word of mouth then too, referrals, but still the initial, contact, a lot of it you would do, radio advertising, things like that. So, what do you recommend where people go out and find these contractors?
Yeah. Well, the first is, your network of friends and people that you know. I mean, that's what we all do. I need anything. I usually go to Facebook now or something and I go, hey, anyone know blah, blah, blah. And because we trust the people that we know, the most. So push that aside. I think who's involved in your community, and I have an end game with what I'm about to say here, because I'm a fan of the well-branded contractor who is active in the community, whether they're a general, a specialty contractor, doesn't matter, where they're there to add value to the community. We used to do charity giveaways to needy families. We'd have the community nominate people and things like that. But we understand that this community is feeding us and all of our employees and all their families, and we're grateful for that. So we want to give back when we can. And so I would first look to those, you go to an event and you see a contractor sign at your kid's baseball game or something. That's a guy that's ponying up some of his money, to support something that's going on in the community. So I think that's a good place to start. And certainly, we have to talk about search engines and things like that. For me, I personally, I look for the people that have the most reviews. I'm doing projects around my house right now, and for the trades that I don't have relationships with in the area, I'm literally going to Google and I'm just going to the reviews, who's got the most reviews. And what's funny is the ones with the most reviews, they're the ones where I see their trucks in the community. They're the ones I see some billboards where they're very active. They're very visible. There's safety in a brand. When we adopted my daughter from China, we're dropped in the middle of the country, go out to this little village, we get her, and all the meals we're having, which I was grateful for, but it was like stuff that I didn't know what it necessarily was. We got back to Guangzhou at the end of our 2 weeks in the country there, and I had my little daughter strapped on my chest, and we're walking around, and she's like 9 months old, and I turn the corners and I see the Golden Arches, right? And I knew it, I've been in the Marine Corps, been around the world. I know food tastes differently around the country or the world, but I knew that I had a really good chance of there being some sort of health code and, some sort of consistency because there's safety in a brand. It doesn't mean that the non-branded contractor is not a good person and this and that. It just means they really haven't taken the business side of their business seriously. They're still running a job. And so I would look for those reviews. Do they have a brand? To me, those are some indicators of a well-run business for the most part.
What I used to do is yard signs. Mm-hmm. So I would actually put a yard sign saying that we were, about to start a project, and then we're in the middle of the project, stop on by, and then we just completed the project, and we would actually send postcards out and things like that. And we would literally go through the neighborhood, door to door to door. But yeah, I love that. I mean, certainly, reaching out to the people that are in your community, your neighborhood, that are serving, and certainly, investing in the community. Excuse me. So let's kind of talk about, you have a project that you want to do, or you got a house that you've bought and you want to rehab it. So you're making those contacts and you're reaching out. There's some preparation work we should be doing, right? Mm-hmm. As consumers, and we need to get those meetings together. And it used to, I would always have the call where they would say, yeah, can you come out? We want to redo this or do this or that. And I would say, well, when? Were you thinking? And of course, they would always say Saturday. Well, Saturdays are money days, man. I mean, I can only see so many people on Saturdays, right? So that would fire me off into a bunch of questions like, okay, what's your project? How far along are you in the process? When do you want to do it? What's your budget? Things like that, because I need to know. And, so if they were hesitant to give me those key facts that I needed to know whether I should come and see them on a Saturday. Sometimes they got offended, like, well, you know, I have money to do my budget, well, my project, but I said, I need to know how much it is. I mean, you know, because I wanted to know that they were mentally prepared, not that I wanted to charge them as much as I could, but I knew if they wanted to do a kitchen installation and they said, I have $150,000 budget, I knew that we were probably online. If they said they wanted to renovate their kitchen and they had a $10,000 budget, I knew that it probably wasn't something that I was interested in doing. So, you know, what are some of the things that people can do to be prepared for that initial consultation?
Yeah. I would encourage people to welcome the contractor who takes control of the sales process. And what I mean by that is, listen, there's a reason they have all these great reviews. There's a reason that they were referred to you. There's a reason that they get a lot of repeat business. There's a reason they've been building their brand for so long. And it will most likely come down to the fact that they take control of this project because this is what they do all day, every day, all year round. And where I think where a lot of consumers go wrong is they go, hey, drive by the house and give me a bid, or come out on a Tuesday night at 7:00 or whatever it is. So I would encourage people, don't ask a home improvement contractor, general contractor, specialty don't ask them to play the typical estimating game, because the legit guys, they don't need to play that game with you. Okay. They're not desperate. They're not starving for their next job. They're not running from deposit to deposit. And so you want somebody who's going to slow things down a little bit and ask some questions, not because, and you brought up the budget thing. You know, one of the things we teach in our sales academy is we teach how to get the prospect's budget 100% of the time without saying, what's your budget? Okay. And it's a thing called bracketing. And I paint two pictures. You know, after I kind of get a feel for what you want, I might say, well, Todd, listen, based on what you described, I have one of two ways that I can approach your project. The first is we blow out this wall and we do this and we do that and blah, blah, blah. And we build you this amazing kitchen, unlike anyone in the town. It'll probably be in all the magazines, and people are going to go on Pinterest and they're going to clip it or pin it and save it on their idea board. And that's going to be, you know, $175,000 to $200,000 or so, whatever. Right. Or we can not blow out the walls and do this and still give you a kick butt kitchen, you know, that's going to meet all the needs that you told me about. And that's going to be, you know, $115,000, $120,000. Which conversation does it make sense for us to have right now? And 100% of the time, they'll be honest with you because you've just painted two pictures. But there's a fear that whatever, and I do the same thing. I go shopping and a sales guy says, can I help you? I go, nope, I'm good. Just looking. We lie to salespeople. We are conditioned to lie to salespeople, or we're also conditioned to protect ourselves when somebody says, what's your budget? Okay. So even if a contractor comes right out and asks you, what's your budget? Remember this conversation here tonight. They're really trying to understand if they can even help you. They don't want to waste a lot of your time. One of the biggest complaints that people have about contractors is it takes them forever to get out there. It takes them forever to get me a price. That's because most contractors, 70% of the conversations they're having and estimates they're doing, they shouldn't even be doing. Okay. Because they're not having these conversations. And so I would encourage.
They're not going to get the job anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the times they're just wasting time on projects that aren't even meant to be had, right?
Yeah, or somebody might just be, hey, we're in the idea phase. We're in the planning stage. You know, Johnny's graduating college next year, and I'm going to be done paying for school, and I'm going to have all this money to put into the house. Well, I don't need to come out there for that. Send me some pictures. We could do a FaceTime. We can have a conversation. But this goes back to contacting those that have a great brand, that have a lot of education on their website. So I think the best contractors are going to be the ones that you Google anything about the thing, you know, painting, flooring, whatever, and you'll see articles on their website come up, videos organically will come up for the content they've created, because they're trying to educate you as much as they can before, just bluntly, before you waste each other's time. And so I would say, first of all, be welcome the guy that slows things down, wants to take control of that sales process. And then the other is, I think there's some good questions that you can ask somebody once you've kind of, you're talking through things with people and you've kind of worked through, yeah, that's the budget range we're thinking of and this and that. I think one of my favorite questions, if I think back to the thousands of projects we did, I can remember one time where somebody asked me this question, and I can also tell you that I could count on one hand the number of times people ask me for insurance, which is funny. The average consumer
Crazy.
does not do their due diligence. I'll tell you right now. And so a lot of times you just get what you get because you didn't do your job, right? But one of the best questions I think you can ask a contractor, because this is back in the day, Todd, where remember we all had the binders with all the nice things people would write about, the grade cards before online was so big. I had my binder and I'm like, here's my binder of nice things people have said about me. I'll go measure things and I'll come back and you
Have
blah,
a
blah,
look.
blah. Right. And so I come back and she was great. She starts laughing. She says, well, of course these are all good. She's like, what about any projects that didn't go as planned? It didn't go well. Tell me about those. And what was cool is I actually welcomed it because we did some things right back in the day. And I said, oh, here. And I flipped to this one woman named Debbie. And I said, oh, Debbie. Yeah. She gave us all A's on this thing. She's been a repeat customer, but the first project we did for her, we totally screwed this up. We messed this up. We made this mistake. And what that did for us is it exposed a flaw in our process of how we were closing out a job. And, in that case, it was setting up a job and making sure that we had the scope right and this and that. So, because of that job, we were able not only to make it right for her, but we were able to tweak our process for this thing and it never happened again. And I was able to give example after example. So I think somebody who's legit, who's a safe bet to work with, they're not going to be intimidated or insecure when you ask them, tell me about a project that didn't go as planned, because we all have them. I think that's a big one. And then to follow that up going, okay, so they say, yeah, it was the Jones project and it was a total mess. You go, okay, so looking back on that job, how would you approach it now? That will say a lot about the person, right? And the company that you're dealing with. But if they start throwing the person under the bus and this and that, then they're probably not looking in the mirror and owning their own crap. And you might want to put the brakes on that one.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say too. Yeah. I mean, asking those questions, I mean, like the question, tell me about the job that didn't go well, because it is true, right? I mean, you're going to give your referrals of your best clients. You're not going to give the referral of somebody that fired you or whatever, I mean, now there's reviews, but a lot of people don't do reviews. I mean, you got to be really upset a lot of times, or be that special kind of person that goes on and writes a bad review. You have to, a lot of times, really be hurt, but there's a lot of unhappy people, maybe just the frustration that they went through. Yeah. And I find, that all the years of doing contracting, people are afraid to ask questions. Mm-hmm. They don't want to ask the question because, they just want things to go so right. And when you're there, a lot of times you're busy as a consumer because you're working a job and you finally have somebody in your house looking at something. You're kind of scared for what may come next that you won't want to hear. But like we were saying earlier offline, I mean, I believe that the truth or what you need to know is only 3 or 4 questions deep. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good question. Tell me about the client that wasn't satisfied with your job and how did you handle that? And like you said, insurance, that's a big thing. Yeah. I think we need to talk about that actually, because, guys, you're hiring people that are coming inside of your house. Yeah. The biggest things that I've seen through the years, and not that long ago. So, I mean, I haven't built a house in probably 4 years. Since I started, I think I sold the last 2 or 3 houses right before I started my real estate brokerage. But prior to that, being a contractor, years of experience, I actually had to get insurance, workers' comp insurance for my subcontractors in case they didn't have workers' comp insurance. Yep. Because what you guys don't realize is there's such a huge liability. People come into your house and somebody gets hurt. I mean, Tom, you ever been on a project where somebody got hurt, man? I mean, I can count. I mean, I've been hurt, right? My partner, I had a partner rehabbing houses for 10 years. My partner, I mean, he shot his hand straight through with a nail gun. We've fallen off ladders.
Yeah.
Busted my legs up. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. So the insurance thing you just mentioned, so you could count in one hand how many people asked you if you had insurance. I probably can do the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing, right?
Yeah, I think, consumers make the assumption, right? Hey, they got great reviews and my neighbor hired them and this and that. Or I've had it where, like, I had a guy tell me once he's going with the guy that he knows is not insured because this isn't a high risk job and he wants, want to spend as much money on the job. And I'm like, all right, man, you roll the dice. But I just think that's also an indicator. You know me, I'm a big personal development guy, right? I'm a big character integrity person. I try to be. I don't want to live a duplicitous life. I think that's hell. And so I think the way you do anything's the way you do everything. And so if you're taking shortcuts because you're not going to pay your taxes, you're not going to get insurance, you're trying to get one over, then who's saying you're not going to do that to your customers as well? And so
you're not managing yourself right. You're not going to manage the job right.
Yeah, if you call a contractor and he goes, no, I don't have insurance, but it lapsed, I'll go ahead and get it if that means getting the job. To me, that says, well, what about all the other projects you've been working on uninsured? Yeah, I'd like you to get it, but to me, it says a lot more about the character. And so then I'm just like, I'm done with them, because to me, that also says that you're not. It's like a pro athlete saying he's not going to practice, not going to eat right. There's just certain things. If you're going to be a professional at something, you just do, and they cost money. And that's part of being in business, which is why I also believe that 70% of business owners in America probably shouldn't be in business for themselves, across all industries, honestly. Small businesses, that is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that you're setting yourself up for when you're asking these questions. Another thing is, how are you going to do the project, right? I mean, What time do you start? What time do you finish up? Do you clean up every single day? Because a lot of times, what I used to say to people is, where are you going to live while we're doing this major project?
Right.
Because they're like, no, we could stay here. We can live here. And they have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And we start at 6:30 in the morning. And they're like, wait a minute, could you start at 9 because we're getting the kids ready for school? Or, can you put everything back together again? So you have to know how they run their jobs too, right?
Yeah. I mean, sorry if my dogs are barking up there right now. It's meal time or something.
Time to eat.
But yeah, it is time to eat for them. I think one of the big things is you mentioned earlier, people don't like to ask a lot of questions. And I think unless you really are intentional and train yourself to ask questions and be curious, your initial reaction as a human being is to protect yourself. I don't want to ask a question and look stupid, right? And so, but I have a few questions here. That first was, tell me about the project didn't go as planned. Here's another big one, which sounds ridiculous, but hey, have you ever done a job like this? Right? Because there's a first for every contractor, and I'd rather not be the guy they're practicing on. Okay. So that's just my take. Here's another big one. How many other projects will you have going on at the same time as mine?
Perfect. Yeah. I love that one. Yeah.
And if they say, now, if you were to ask me that back in the day, I had 6, 7 crews of painters out there and stuff. And I might say, in a given week, we're doing, 4 to 9 projects. I said, but the crew leader on your project's only running one job at a time. He's not bouncing all over the place. And if he leaves the project, it's to do his pre-job walkthrough at the next job. And he's only gone for an hour and a half. And the right-hand assistant crew leader, has the marching orders, and he'll have communicated that with you. So that's a big one. How long have you worked with your subs is another big one. My uncle's a painting contractor outside of Chicago. He's been with his main builder, over 40 years. Okay. And just about every one of the guy's subs has been there for decades, which says a lot about the way he treats his people and how they communicate and work together. How do you handle changes and surprise charges? Right. That's a big one that we got to.
That is real big.
Because Todd, we're signing the contract. You're happy, I'm happy, right? I'm happy I got the job. You're happy you're getting your addition or whatever.
We're at the altar.
Yeah, we're at the altar, man.
We're at the altar.
That's the best time to pull out your checklist of all the shit that could go wrong, and let's initial it together here. Okay. One of my right-hand guy in the Contractor Fight, super successful remodeler for many years, sold his business. He, when they signed the paperwork with people, they would go over the scope like 3 times. And he would say, Todd, this is the scope. When I walk out of here tonight, the wheel starts moving. Conversations are being had with subs, scheduling's taking place, all this. There are a million moving parts that start going once I leave here. Okay. If you're going to make any changes or add something, do it right now. See, and then here was the thing, because he set the expectation. He said, because 3 weeks or 3 months from now, when you want to add something or make a change, I'm going to have to charge you a total arm and the leg, and you're going to hate me for it, because I have to charge you like way more, because it affects everything else in the schedule and makes it, if we're going to finish the project on time and all that other stuff, we got to pull a rabbit out of our tail. Right. So I think it was supposed to be a hat. See, I told you I always butcher those things. Hat, tail, whatever. And then later on, they would go, hey, Neil, we want to add this thing. He would go, Todd, do you remember when we sat at the kitchen table and I told you it was going to hurt? They're like, yeah, we know it's going to hurt, but we really want this. So now there's no hard feelings about it. So I think have those conversations about being really clear on the scope of work. And for us, we used to do, so, I'd sell a project, I'd hand it off to operations. A few weeks later, our guy would go out and we would do a pre-game visit where our crew leader would go out with the scope of work, and this is painting, so it's very different. It's specialty trade, but he'd go around and walk the project with the homeowner and confirm the scope of work. Hey, did we get this right? These are the colors, these are the rooms. And oftentimes what was funny is my crew leader would call me and go, hey, I'm here with Todd, and Todd says all the closets are included, but it's not on my work order. Well, the time to figure that out is before you get into the project. And I'd go, hey, give me the phone. I go, hey, Todd, remember we had that conversation? I said the closets were another $3,500, and you said, oh, forget it. You do it yourself. Oh yeah, I remember. Okay. And I don't think it's consumers trying to get one over. I think consumers have so many different things going on in their life. They're having so many conversations with different contractors, and they don't remember who said what and what was included. So we have to go that extra mile as a contractor to really get clear on that scope. So don't be afraid to ask your contractor to do that. I have another thing here, was for later, but do nothing unless it's in writing, right? If it's not in writing, it does not exist, period.
This is a big one. I can't tell you how many times when, people will call me up and they'll say, hey, I'm in this project. I had this guy, so-and-so, a friend of mine, was going to finish my basement, and, it's a mess. It's a disaster. And, I gave him all my money, and, I have really nothing to show for it. And I'll say, well, where's the contract? I'll say, he's not a contract. I mean, no contract. I mean, it was a handshake. I told him I wanted to. Yeah, we just walked around. I said, I want this here and this there, and build me this and finish this room. And how many times have you heard that? I mean, get things in writing. And what you just said is a big deal. The inside, I mean, had you not had a contract and in writing, and the contractors know if they're not taking the time to outline the scope of the work, that should be a red flag. You should be saying, wait a minute. Because you're never going to remember what the conversations are. And chances are they're going to say, I don't remember us talking about that. I don't know. That wasn't included in the deal. So guys, if you take anything away, make sure that you have a contract in place. And I believe too, that there should be like an end date. You should have, you have to have a project start date and a project finish date. In Maryland, we have, a home improvement contractor license. And there are things that must be in the contract. And people ask me all the time, well, landscaping in Maryland, Tom, you need a home improvement contractor. If you go out to mulch somebody's beds, it's residential, you need a home improvement license. And people say it all the time, like, oh, I don't need it. You do. And, the same goes with the people that are hiring these people. So, I think that if nothing else, you guys are listening tonight, we're kind of going back and forth, hopefully you're getting some good information here that, it's easy. You have a glass, it looks the same manufacturer. It's not even in the picture. And you can go and you can save $1 on 4 glasses. The difference between Walmart and Target or whatever, it's the same manufacturer, it's the same glass. You get this. You cannot compare apples to apples in contracting. There's no way. You have no idea what you're getting in a service business. You can check out craftsmanship. What do you think about that, Tom? Should people be going and looking at the jobs? You had mentioned something about, making sure, have you ever done this job before? Before you answer that, I want to tell you something. So I had a guy call me up from Texas, and he sent me pictures. He said, man, look at this sidewalk. And it's this outrageous picture of this outrageous sidewalk with all these cuts and patterns and big stone pavers with bricks going through it and all kinds of patterns. But anyway, he said, how much do I charge for something like that? Well, how many square feet is it? So whatever it was, I said, probably at least $8,000. He said, you're kidding me. I'll never get the job. I said, well, maybe that's a good thing. You don't get the job. I mean, first of all, have you ever built anything like that before? No. Like, this is a big job. This is like you're dealing with pavers that are 2.5 inches thick, 2.25 inches thick, brick pavers, and you have no idea what you're doing. So what a great question, your client, that you recommended. Yeah. Have you ever done this before? But what do you think about people actually going and seeing their work?
Yeah. Again, in our day and age, there's no reason a contractor shouldn't have a lot of video content and things like that kind of make the case, and have a lot of content on the website of, hey, what to expect when we're in your house, how to get your house or property ready for us to show up, what happens after you sign the contract, bring them behind the scenes. Like, a lot of that should happen. So let's just pretend they don't have that. Or even if they do, it can't hurt for you to say, hey, I'd like to go, like I'm doing a $250,000 backyard right now, and had I not known Matt Heiner, the guy doing the job, he's one of my clients for years and I know his work and stuff, I would have said, take me to a couple other places. And I just want to put eyes on it. I want to have a conversation with people. Here's another thing. People didn't ask for insurance. Here's the other thing. I had a list of 10, 20, 30 people that we had done work for that said they'd love to tell people about us as referrals, right? References. And I remember one year I asked them, we had a client appreciation event and almost all of them were there. And I said, just out of curiosity, how often do people call you to check my reference? And they in a year, none of them ever got a phone call. So this goes back to the consumer doing their due diligence. Like, but I there was when we would pick up a new remodeler or a new builder, we would bring him to one of our other builders' properties to show him our work. Like, hey, this is what we do. And we'd show him like, hey, this is the process we use to finish all the trim. So it looks like an auto finish and all that stuff. And he'd come in and he'd see everything masked and we're tack cloth in the trim and, vacuuming it off before we're spraying it. Like, I mean, a picture is a million words or whatever, 1,000 words, and a video or being in person is worth 1,000,000. So 100%, you got to do your due diligence. And back to the in writing thing. Sorry, I have ADD.
It's part of being a contractor, I think.
God. I don't care what size the job is. I don't care if it's a $150 adjustment on a screen door that you're there for 10 minutes. Get it in writing because it protects everybody. I got story after story, but this one story, this is something you shouldn't do to your contractor. About once a year, we'd get a client who was an attorney, and he or she felt it was within their rights to fax back or email back our contract with a bunch of changes that they made. And it's like, no, not happening. Like, we spent a lot of money crafting this. All right. And if you don't like the terms, then don't hire us. Right. So anyway, total side note there. But one other thing here, Todd. make sure you're clear on the payment schedule. All right. Here's why. If a contractor is sending you progress payment invoices and things like that and wants money and blah, 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 and it's outlined up front, pay them when it's due. Okay. Because the reason that they're finishing their job on time, the reason that they're fulfilling the promises that they made you is because they have cash flow, right? It's the guys that don't have clear terms of payments, that are running to deposit check to rob Peter to pay Paul, and they disappear for days at a time on your job because they had to go start the other job, and then they give them a song and dance to come back and finish yours. And that happens all the time because it's back on the contractors. Contractors don't do their part when it comes to payment. And another thing they don't do, if you're a contractor watching this, if you have payment terms and the payment is due today, send the invoice a week earlier and then send it a couple days before it's due, and then follow it up with a phone call. And here's the thing, guys, if they don't pay it, stop working. Okay. A lot of times we get into problems because we keep working and we don't even fulfill our own contract. Why would we expect somebody else to? I'm walking 6 feet away to get my power cord so this doesn't die on us right now.
Well, I could tell stories about, being a contractor for 32 years, it still happens to me. So I can remember, a couple years ago, I just did a rehab and, a flip, and I have a painter in there. And this is a guy that I even used for years, man. And he had every story in the book, man. His car broke down, his truck broke down, and he needed a couple extra bucks, whatever. And I mean, he would come out and work just enough to get a check. And, I'm going to say, if you're dealing with contractors that are like that, you're not going to have a very good project. I ended up firing him and never using him again, never even recommending him. But I think, like you said, I mean, if you're one of those consumers that always wants to save a penny and pinch, and you want to beat the contractor down to where they don't make money, because that happens. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have people, wanting to negotiate on the work, and, or negotiating at the end or holding money back or things like that. I mean, you're not going to be building a good team. If you own a home or you're a rehabber or you're starting to invest in real estate, your success is going to really be based on the team of contractors that you use. So, don't have the tolerance for the bad contractors. Don't take the BS. Just like Tom said, they will run back and forth from job to job to job, chasing deposit checks. Your job will go, on the back burner, but you also don't want to pay too much more than you should. So if somebody's like, hey man, I know I'm not done yet, but if you could, give me that extra money, so that I can buy this or buy that, and you fall into that sob story, you should also push back and say, no, your contract or our agreement said that when you finish this milestone, you get a check. Because the last thing you want to do is be down on a $20,000 job to $1,500 in a payment of what you owe yet, and a lot more work than that hasn't been completed. Good luck trying to get them to come back.
Well, and those that are investors and doing flips and stuff, you're building a business doing that, right? And you want to build a business that gives you a repeatable, consistent product every time in a timely manner. Like you're in business to make a profit. Don't be afraid to tap your team, your subs on the shoulder and just say, and I'm a fan of having a monthly subcontractor meeting. Take them out for wings and just get to know each other and stuff. The more community you could build within your own team, they're less likely to bicker with each other and stuff, and they'll be more respectful with each other, but they know their thing. And so if you went to them and said, hey, this will go a long way. Trust me, guys. I want every one of us to have as low stress as possible in our businesses, and all of us to make as much money as we can. Okay. Like, start with that. And I want to deliver a great product and experience for our clients and all that other stuff. Let's put our heads together and figure out ways that maybe we can sequence some things in more efficient ways, this and that, to where you're not cutting your margins. We're just working smarter. We're, or it might be a good, better, best package. I know that's a big thing with a lot of guys. Like if I'm painting, being our baby corgis freaking out right now. Sorry, guys. But like, I had a guy come to me once. It was a great relationship with a builder. And he's like, hey, remember that basement we did there? Blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. He says, I don't need that quality. Like, I need this. And in the painting world, we had kind of different levels of finishes and some things like that. And I know drywallers do and this and that. But have those conversations and just go, hey, man, we're trying to get this on the market. This house is only going to sell for $175,000. It's not, the $3 million home over there that the trim needs to look like an auto finish. I want it good. I want it done. I don't want any loose ends. How can we work that out? How can we make this go better? And I promise you, when you lead your team in a way while you're trying to help them get what they want, you're going to get what you want as well. And you're going to have a true relationship there.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Because you're making that contractor part of the team. Instead of saying, hey, look, I don't want you to make any money on this thing. What you're really saying is you're setting the expectations. Like, we all need to make money, but this is what it's going to sell for. And this isn't that, that $1 million house that you're, pricing out. So
Todd, we have a group of contractors in our private Facebook group called the Contractor Fight. Sorry, she's freaking out. Let me yell at her.
Saying it's time. It's time. Right. Do they understand English?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
What's that? There was a joke. Remember that the world's most interesting man commercials? Remember those? The Dos Equis, I think they were, the guy with the beard.
I don't know.
Anyway, it was like he once taught a German shepherd how to bark in Spanish or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think that they would rather you learn to bark. Probably.
Yeah, they probably would. But I just think there's when you go in our private Facebook group, and if anybody, this is funny because this says a lot. If anybody says, hey, I'm about to bid a project for a GC or a home builder or an investor, right out of the gate, there's like 100 comments saying run. All they want is to screw you over. So that's the word on the street about investors from the contractor perspective. Now, we all know that's not true. Okay. But I just think the way we treat our people and our teams and things like that will really go a long way. There's a workshop I do called the Profit Path. And one of the things I teach is that we all want to make more profit. So we all go, I got to do better work, or I got to make my customers happy, when it's actually, no, you need to be a better leader, build a strong culture, satisfy your team. That will create a loyal team who does better work and create customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and profit over and over. So it all starts with you looking in the mirror as a leader, and then you working from the inside out with your team. And a lot of investors, GCs, builders, even just regular business owners have it flipped. And so take care of your own first. And I promise you'll have people that will bend over backwards to help you succeed.
Make them part of the success of your entire team. And even as a homeowner, build that relationship, that rapport, focus on hiring the right contractor, ask those right questions, and be really slower to make the decisions. And your project will go much better, and you will have a lot less stress. And yeah. Tom, thank you so much, man. What a great information. We're going to publish all your information in our show notes. If anybody wants to reach out to Tom, you have a network all over the country, don't you?
It's crazy, man. We got just an amazing group of men and women that are trying to get better as contractors. I mean, that's probably the one common denominator is, regardless, we got brand new companies and we got $100 million companies in our community, and everybody that's in there is there to get better, and there's the prerequisite to get in our community is that you have to own your crap, meaning you have to share something in your character that you need to improve on that's holding your business and your life back. And so right away we go for the character stuff. I don't want a bunch of people that are in there for the wrong reasons. And so, again, that's the leadership and the type of culture I want. I want a culture where every one of us looks in the mirror, takes it on the chin, and tries to get better. And so, yeah, I would, if you're a contractor watching this, just go anywhere, online and type in the Contractor Fight. And if you're a consumer, ask your contractor if they know about the Contractor Fight, because we don't just teach people how to make money, man. Like, that's huge, right? Money makes a lot of problems go away, but we teach people how to deliver a better experience, how to communicate better, set better expectations, build stronger teams, all so that everybody can win, not just one side.
Sounds like a lot more than contractors can benefit, man.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, it's good stuff. So
Tom, thanks again for being on our show. We really appreciate it.
Todd, I appreciate it, man. Keep doing this.
Yep. And if you guys want to reach out, feel free to do so. We would appreciate also to hit that thumbs up. If you like this video, it would help you get more content just like this. And let us know we're doing a good job of bringing you the content that you want to hear. Until next week, talk to you soon.